Tertúlia.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today is Sunday, June 27, 2010. The entry is number 1506. The theme is Neocontent. The subdiscipline is Megacontentology. Definition. The Neocontent is the theory and the practice of the hybrid evolutionary renewable reality in the evolutionary period, composed of two separate steps, although interactive, interarticulated, and synergic, which is the factor, a variable, which is more relevant, important, significative, and the nous, original things, intrinsic to the factor itself. The Neocontent as the essence of consciential evolution. The fact that every evolutionary effort is based on new content. The interpretation of specific Neocontent in each paraphenomenon. The linguistic transcription of the new content captured extraphysically. The pure new content in conscientious. In argumentology, we have a text on contextology. The content is the most relevant factor and the most important relief in the contents. Here, in alphabetical order, with punctual exposition regarding the new aspect in each step focused. We have also a table here with 20 categories of confronts of the most common new contents. And then we have in the list of the entries, paraperceptive consistence, content of the consciousness, contentology, self-association, linearity, and frame. The emphatic sentence. The researches of the new contents compose the structure of every evolutionary interest of the lucid consciousness, where it assumes the cosmoethical duty in the exemplified interessentiality. How broad then are your self-reflections regarding the new contents? Have you expanded your own new contents? A question. I see there are some moments when I have fear and anxiety in a way that I can't control. Fear is exactly what it told me about. How to overcome this? Should I use some medicine? I would like you to tell him this, because here João is the bravest guy. Okay, I could tell this is a paradox or a contradiction, but my tip is the following. Nowadays, a person needs to ask for professional help. The behavior psychology helps a lot with fear, and in Foz do Iguaçu we have consciential therapy, but you should check the book called Vencendo o Pânico in Portuguese, Overcoming Fear. Professor Graça Razeira works with this. And you can send us an email and we give you some more tips. You can come here and visit OIC. That would be the best. Other question. Since I was 12, I had parapsychical phenomena and catalepsy. After some time, I had some lucid projections with the helper. After some years, these lucid projections stopped. Nowadays, I am 45, but I don't know since when I have had some possessions during catalepsy, and I realized there was this intruder trying to get my own body and take me out of reality. When my evolutionary duo tried to help me, she touched my body, and the intruder left a very bad energy in the environment. I haven't practiced Penta yet, and I see that everything is better, but it's still happening. What can I do? You have the semi-possession. You need to finish this. The earlier the better, through vibrational state, and show you are the owner of your own body. If you enter in this trance with the intruder, your wife should call your name. For example, if she calls you honey or sweetheart, baby, she should call you through this name. It gives you more power to regain your body. But this is a matter of the past. It's very strong and serious, and you should settle the environment of your house so the helpers could arrive and take this consciousness away, because that's the problem. And the following, you didn't have a helper when you were younger. It was a blind guide. Otherwise, you wouldn't feel the blind guide when you are 45. During so many years, it doesn't work. That's not correspondent to reality. So the problem is vibrational state, dominated. The owner of the body is you. How can I make more realistic the linguistic transcription of the Neocontent captured in the extraphysical? The first thing is for you to quit with fanaticism and superstition, especially religion or the sects. That's what must finish. When you see the paraphenomenon, the way you see your own hand with reality, with all the realism, all the lines and the scars in your hands, the kind of nails you have, the nails who are cut, this kind of reality is the same one you will see in the paraphenomenon. You need to see the same way, the extraphysical and the intraphysical thing. When you get to this point, you will be able to see the reality. And you see the details I use here. For example, to make those 3 entries instead of only 1. It's to comb, to use a fine comb. For example, regarding antagonism, how many entries have we already done? Everything to call your attention. Another question. What is bioenergy made from, and what is the origin? Bioenergy is the strength of the cosmos. The same way we talk about God, prime thought, immanent energy is the same. But energy doesn't have intelligence. You do have intelligence, your consciousness. So you need to develop a handling of the energy so it can be consciential, purely consciential. Another question. Isidoro Duarte Santos from the Navy has been president of the Spiritism Federation in Portugal in Lisbon. He has directed a magazine during the dictatorship of Salazar, and although every risk of being arrested at the time, Isidoro Duarte Santo has published an article talking about the projection. He seemed to be a projector. Were you friends? Were you two friends? Could you talk about him? Isidoro was an outstanding personality, was very intelligent person. He made a congressman between Brazil and Portugal. He has even several books. You should read his books. And we also have the collection of his articles and his magazine here in Holoteca. In 1965, a little bit later this article, we have been with him in Rua do Salitre, in Lisbon, in the dictatorship time. And he took some pictures. We have the data collected, and I have also published some articles before that. If you try to find my articles, you will find it. The commander had some parapsychical sensibility, but he didn't have it well developed, but he was very sensitive, very intelligent, clever, experienced, a lot of knowledge, and he was dedicated to the phenomenon process. That's why he made this magazine. Since the beginning, he was very dedicated to it. It's worth it to read his books and also the magazines. You're talking about an article, a single article, but there are dozens of articles. It was specialized in parapsychical studies. You should see it. So you should check in Holoteca the collection of the magazine. Okay, something else. Today we have the 11th hour, produced and narrated by Leonardo DiCaprio, the darkest moment of humankind. It's a documentary, surprising one, and it makes us feel in the mood to watch more, to want for more. Understand the documentary and change the world. That's what they say here. The final moment for us to change the course of history from our global collapse. This is environmental study. At what time will this movie be played? 8:30 p.m. in Discernimento. How do you call your movie theater? The Cognopolis movie theater. So you are the manager, right? This is very important. It's Marcos, okay? Yeah, today is to finish the festival, the winter festival. We also have some lectures in the afternoon. You'd better arrive early, okay? I would like to tell you that yesterday I spent 4 hours in the winter festival in Discernimento to see the trike and the trail, the ecology trail. Today I walked in this trail. I gave them my opinions. I saw many trees, fruit trees, bananas, orange, lemon, everything nearby the trail. You don't get your feet, your shoes dirty. It's very well organized. There are some shades And there are some very old trees, centenary, centennial trees. You should do this winter festival in 2 days next year, in order that Antonio, our new pop star, that was a revelation, could have some company. There will be other revelations. Malu, you were busy. You didn't show up. Next year, don't mark any complementarium. You should go there and sing for us. This is going to be very important. Okay? Yeah, just for the lady. Oh, my sister was there. Waldo, you are also invited, okay? To sing. Oh, who am I? I am 78. Come on. I have no voice. I can't even say my love. It's not the same. My love. It's not so strong. I'm not the same. Another thing I would like to tell you. I thought very interesting. My friend from the weather program, the forecast, said that it was going to rain. It's my frog, you know. I believe the frog's better than the broadcasting forecast. The frog made that sound twice. But do you think it's gonna rain today? There was the time when the frog warned me about the weather, and the weather really changed. We never know. Professor, I would like to invite everybody, because today we continue with the Winter Festival, the second part of it, with the zoonosis lecture, for us to interact with some animals, some insects, and how to take care. And at 4 p.m. we're gonna walk on the trail. Yeah, we have to deal with the poisonous animals, the poisonous insects. And we would like to thank for those who gave some clothes to the NGO called ABC, and we got a lot of materials. We also have some hats to be sold, and they can buy in the sedimento and before the walk. Okay. I took some pictures, but only with those who were wearing hat. To merchandise, you know, advertisement. Call the attention. So all this is ICCC new content, the revelations. Is new content necessarily a new verpon? Is new content a leading edge relative truth? It depends, because sometimes it's not. Let's say I am very stupid and I read about something I don't know that. For me it's something new, but it's not a new content. Everybody knows about that, but for me it's unknown. It's not a relative truth, a leading edge relative truth. It's something old, everybody knows about that, but as I am stupid, I am not clever, I didn't know about that. So we should study more. So check contextology and the table of the conference of confrontations of the new content. But Waldo, you can also talk about an idea that previously you didn't understand, but now you have studied and it's really new. I would like you to talk about the emphatic sentence, because many people think that mental somatic is not related to assistance. There is this bond with constellation task. Yeah, but these are the guys from the art. So I would like you to talk about interassistance and this new content. I was talking about this with these two ladies here. The most important thing in the universe, the cosmos, life, is not love. It's not love. This is a mistake, but if you say this to some people, they will send me to jail or to hangman or... The problem, the matter, what matters is the content of the cognition. So, for example, it's useless to talk about love if the person doesn't know what you're talking about. What love are you talking about? What love is this? But if you talk about cognition, it is the knowledge of what you're saying. So important thing in cosmos is cognition. Content of conscienciology. What you can understand. This is important. This way we come to a point when cognition is obvious, it's important, it's relevant. And that's what we call love. Happiness, for example. What is this happiness? It's nothing more than the balance, the intimate harmony, and you need to understand this harmony. There are many people that are happy because they have lots of money, or that Don Joe that has 5 women. It's relative. You should check the content from the context that's more intelligent within the evolutionary intelligence. Everything is mental soma. Psychosoma is nonsense. That's why the Serenissimos leaves the psychosoma and keeps the mental soma, because it's the headquarters of the brain, the parabrain. We are the parabrain. And what does it content? What does it have? Cognition. From cognition comes all the feelings, all the sentiments, all the virtues, the weak and strong traits, instincts, tendencies. Everything originates from the parabrain. I used to say, I'm not staying here when I was in the Spiritism. And some people came to me and asked, but Waldo, are you leaving the Spiritism? Yes, because I can't stand it anymore. There is too much foolish thing. Nobody wants to study, to make research. I study. I've been studying since I was a kid. Throughout many lives, I am hooked in study. So try to understand. Nobody wants to study here. That's why I'm leaving. But it's what I call cognition. And the content of this cognition is what matters. It can be physical, it can be extra-physical. It can be emotionally based, on an emotional basis, but everything is logics, everything is factual or parafactual. Waldo, do you think that our insufficiency in the interassistance spreads is lack of cognition? Yeah. That's why constellation tasks is easier, right? Yeah, ignorance is lack of cognition. That's why I told you, it's useless. It's useless for the spiritists to stay with me there, because they will never leave the psychosoma, the perispirit, what they call perispiritum. Allan Kardec had very little time to study. He was a math teacher, a high school math teacher in Paris. He had no time to study. So are you going to stay stuck to a high school teacher from the 19th century? For how long? And I told them this 44 years ago, and they are still the same, like fossils. Waldo, in the same way, if we don't study or what we have experienced, we're going to spend too much more time to evolve, right? The worst is not that, Malo. Because when you do this, it's guarding your own will. The problem is when you start falling apart and you have accident, macro-PK, interpretation, and you have a lot of difficulties with no need, because it lacks cognition, lacks priority, then it comes suffering, religion overcomes the person and the dogma, and this is a vicious cycle. But the virtuous cycle happens when the person leaves this negative cycle with lucidity, rationality, logics, priority, through the evolutionary intelligence. That's why evolutionary and intermissive course is the way out. Professor. So, Waldo, it's a vicious circle because of material phenomena is what impacts people. Yes, and Spiritism is based on this. It doesn't work. I told them when I was about 10, I talked to my teacher Alípio, and he used to teach me Christian moral. So I asked him, "Teacher, this is not right to say out of charity there is no salvation." He told me, "Son, don't say this, because this is the basis of Spiritism. You're going against the Spiritism." I knew that because I used to send the money to those poor people. My father used to give the money, and it was kind of assistance. And I told him, "But this is not important. My father knows what's more important." Nobody taught him anything. In my primary school, nobody taught me. In your course of Christian moral, nobody taught me. I want to listen to my father. It was not from school, this Sunday course here in the Spiritism. So he told me, "Oh, you ask too much. Talk to your father and see what he thinks." So I went to talk to my father, and he told me, "Oh, son, this thing of charity is nonsense. You need to do assistance." And he explained to me what he thought about that. Assistance is most of all relief. How, Father? Do you give relief to other people? No, you have relief. This is what my father told me. You have a relief. You help other people. This is a relief for you. The other person has a secondary relief. So can you imagine the broadening of his imagination and my conflicts regarding this issue? That's when I started making my restrictions regarding the Spiritism. So I started studying the Genesis book, the psychic book, the prayer book, a lot of nonsense and foolish things. And I had more experience, and I used to compare the practice and what I had studied. So think about cognition as an important thing. Conscienciology is the study of the self-cognitionology.
So, for example, when the other person says that I talk too much about myself, how am I going to teach conscienciology without speaking of myself? I won't say anything. Will I just talk about the good and bad things of you folks? I will talk nothing about my things, so they want me to do wrong things. This is not what I am doing that's wrong. What's wrong is that they want me to do wrong things. For example, if I was to study minerals, okay, even though there is a small relation between ourselves, but here the case is that I am studying Conscienciology, myself, yourself. How am I going to study that without talking about myself? It's the traditional sciences concept, saying that you have to study and leave aside yourself. They say that science is all about putting yourself aside of the process, and I've already written about that, about the elimination of the experimenter. Could you pass that on to your friend behind you? Thank you. Now here, in your opinion, what's the greatest problem found in the practice of the vibrational state? I see that self-corruption still blocks it a lot. In most times, I can install it perfectly, what I call the intentional state. Intentional state, he wrote here. Is there any way to measure the VS quality in order to define if it's real VS or not? The VS is easy to assess because you can see the immediate reactions of the energy. Your will commands your energy and you see the results right away. Work on those 40 maneuvers of energy and you will be able to check that out. Could you elaborate on the emphatic sentence? The Neocontent researchers compose the structure of every evolutionary interest of the lucid consciousness, where it assumes the cosmoethical duty in the exemplified intersubstantiality. So in this case, the consciousness becomes an intersubstantial mini-cog in a multidimensional mechanism of highest expression. So the person is hired by this corporate, intersubstantial corporate that is managed by the Serenissimuses. So this is the content we have to bear in mind. And the other thing we have to take into account here is that intersubstantiality means that you are the first to be assisted, not the assisted himself. Now, if I have a baby and I am trying to make him sleep, is that useful to work on my energies? Yes, it is. If it's positive, I mean, if your energy is good, because if it's harmful, you should forget it. If your intention is good, okay, you may go on and enhance your energies. Could you elaborate on the blind guides you talk about? The spirits that are with Divaldo Franco and so on are blind guides? Yes, they are. I have written 26 books with hundreds of spirits that were blind guides, even those who were very smart. For example, Kevin Van Dyne, he was very smart, but he had to work with his messages within that dogmatic framework of the Spiritism movement. When he talked about Allan Kardec and Jesus Christ, they were the boundaries of his message. That's what blind guides are all about. They have limits, boundaries, limiting their work, so they don't envisage others' clarification. They inform according to their dogmatic mindset. They don't want to understand that, because those who are inside dominate to master it are those who like to master, to manipulate people. Leaders that manipulate people, it's a power process. So all of those who are managing this situation are still there because they like power. They like manipulating people due to power. Nowadays we are even talking about the industry of psychography, industry of mediumship and so on. There are articles talking about that and so on. Now, I know that the time you had in the Spiritism got you in touch with Divaldo Franco. Have you ever talked about Conscienciology with him? No, I haven't. Now, he writes also that Our Evolution, the book Our Evolution, is very good. Yes, I imagine. And I think that you shouldn't waste your time with fanatic people in the Spiritism. Now here, let's sing Crescendology. The self-evolutionary crescendo of new identities made pure in successive intraphysical recyclings. So let's clarify that. It's a crescendo of pure new identities in successive recycling. So you enhance your identities through intraconsciential recyclings successively. By doing so, the person grows. I don't recognize the roles that I had performed before being born, but now I am a new person and I can still deal with the same facets of personalities and still grow. Yes, that's all life is about. Because if you are in your life and you don't change anything, it's just like that poem that talks about that. Pasó por la vida y no vivió. In Spanish. That's it. He passed through life and didn't take advantage of it. Now, could you elaborate on this role, these extra lives, past lives roles? Could you elaborate on that? Yes, okay, to understand better who you are, you should read this book called Conscienciogram. You will read this book and see who you are. But there are other things that you can know about yourself when you go to Conscious, when you go to Consciential Therapy, when you go to Apex to check your existential program, and so on and so on. And you can come here too in Tertúlia, that I will show and throw at your face some truths. But anyway, Professor, here on your right, I would like to go back to Malu's question about the cognitive process. I would like to understand, you were making some remarks on the decisive details. So the cognitive process is exactly the differential. Yes, the decisive detail is decisive for your consciential life. It's the definitive detail, or decisive detail is exactly the self-cognition. What we were talking about here is that in intraphysicality, what is the main decisive detail? Our debate was the following. She said and wrote to me that water was the decisive detail because it composed 65% of the human body. But I said, I'm sorry, it's oxygen, which composes water. And she said, your answer is unavoidable. So you were able to see the drama she made to answer that. Your answer is unavoidable. So that's what we were talking about in introphysicality. I'm just giving you an example here. That was the debate we were having here. And the decisive detail in introphysicality is exactly oxygen. Why? Because this is an oxygen planet. Okay, now connecting with my yesterday's question, this cognitive process should be framed in your existential program. Your question is out of scope here. Let's frame your question. When you talk about content, it's the essence of the idea you were talking about. If you bring others, if you elaborate on that, if you make it more sophisticated every day, you have already wandered off the content. Because the content implies this reality in the first place. Did you understand that? You see, this is more than philosophy. That guy that was criticizing, saying that we are just in philosophy here, I'm showing that it's more than the premises to come to the syllogisms. We're showing facts. That's what philosophy lacks. Facts. We should put into practice a practical philosophy, something that works. We need the experience that is 99% of the whole thing. Now let's see if you really understood it all. If the content is meaningful, you don't have to talk about the person's intention and so on. It's a frame. It doesn't matter. The person didn't understand yet. If the person wandered off, it's because the person isn't aware of the realities. The cognition is not that one. If I say you're going to perform assistance, content is assistance. So it implies interassistentiality, you're going to be the first to be assisted. It has to be content-based. It has to be informative, clarifying, and cosmoethical, after all. That's the content we want to bring up on assistance. So everything is in the same concept. Assistance, interassistance, and so on. So the content I'm talking about here is with capitalized letters. It's the nec plus ultra. There is no one other. So you have to see what's the decisive detail. So that's what I'm talking about when you live here. There is just oxygen, because without that you cannot live. And you may say, okay, Waldo, but we can manifestate ourselves as an extra-physical consciousness. I say, my eye, that's not what I am talking about here. It shows that you've wandered off. It's the secondary condition, not the essential one. So the process here is to get to the meaning, to the core meaning, the essential. The nucleus of the idea. Okay, Professor, thank you very much. It's very clear now. But yesterday you talked about the three entries that you decided to study in depth. Okay, and you want me to talk about that. Okay, I'm going to tell you, folks, she's one of the most curious people we have here. But please, you have the three. Could you just tell her, please? Okay, so now you just say it and specify it. The text and the detail. Take a look at the paper I gave you. Yes, it's better to take the sheet of paper to clarify her.
Okay.
Let's see what you understand. There are three entries. I could just write one, but I decided to write three of them because of the helper's inspiration in order to specify. And I didn't have time yet to elaborate on them because last night I was in my winter festival. I being there for 4 hours. There was no extra-physical attack. There was a capsule of positive energy and so on. Okay, so now there are 3 entries of consciential anchor. The first one is intimate consciential anchor. What would be the intimate consciential anchor? I put there just one name. I'm not saying that it's the only one, but Ultimi is the one that I wrote there. It's the first intimate consciential anchor. Ultimi. Let's see the second entry. External consciential anchor. What was the one? Biophilia is external for us who are intraphysical consciousness. Because if you don't like life, what you're doing here, you're gonna commit suicide. These suiciders are just like that. They just give up on this life. Now the third entry is the extraphysical consciential anchor, which deals with the ophiexology, the science of extraphysical clinic, because you have one foot here, the other foot there, and you are dealing with both realities at the same time, simultaneously. So you have the process of content that, and you can't push it, because I challenge you to find a mistake in it. Where does it carry any misinterpretation? Where is it wrong? See if it makes sense. Okay, it does, but it's just to get started. And now I'm gonna work with it. I'm going to deepen the contents, the approach, the scope. For example, the extraphysical will work more in parapsychology, the external in factology, and it goes on and on and on. So you see the differences between the entries, everything concerning contents. So now, for example, I was studying the process of the epilogue, and then I noticed that I hadn't touched the subject properly. But now I am talking about this anchor process, this anchor with the ego. And I thought of an entry to deal with that, and it would be the consciential anchor. And when I noticed, that's what I talk about, the neo-verpon, the neo-leading edge relative truth. And then that's what I thought of the 3. I thought of the 3 entries. That's the same as when you deliver 3 babies at a time. Triplets.
Na página 11,
Professor, on page 11,
binomiologia,
the
não sei se já foi
4th
corrigido, ele está bonomiologia.
binomiology, I don't know if it's been corrected, there is a spelling mistake there. Yes, thank you very much, we're going to correct it.
O senhor poderia falar sobre esses binômios?
Professor, could you elaborate on these binomials? Let's see the first one. The unrevealed self-content and the explicit self-content. You can have a self-content within yourself that you haven't given value to it. You haven't highlighted that. So your idle capacity concerning that subject. You have gifts, talents, potentials that are useless. You haven't put them into practice. You sometimes don't even know you have them. So this is the unrevealed contents. And now the explicit ones, That's when you discover, yes, I do have it. There's lots of people who come here and take part in our courses, debate, come here to the Tertulias. They just discover their talents, and they're not talents concerning singing or guitar playing and so on. The situation is different. We're talking about mental somatic talents. They'll say, well, no, my memory is better than average. And this is very serious. One of these days, there was this person saying, well, I am just getting in touch with my personal attributes. And I said, yes, but everybody has it. After the virus, everybody started having it. But were you able to understand that? Okay, now the other one. The neo-reality, neo-experience binomial. You found out recently the vibrational states, and now you have to put that into practice. You have to experience that, because just knowing about that's not sufficient. Now you got to have the 99% of the whole thing, which is the experience. Now the neo-perceptual and the neo-construct binomial. It's when the person perceives that unit of perception. That unit of perception should become a leading edge relative truth, the new Verpon in this case, which is a neo leading edge relative truth, and the person has to apply that into his life, to apply it, to really live it. This brings the person out, takes the person out of the theory and throws the person into the practice, which is the same case here in the next one, which is neo-analysis, neo-synthesis binomial. So all the approach within your in-depth study, the interpretation of a fact, of an event, you will now sum that up and come to a synthesis. You will say, now let's summarize that into one single aspect. So that's what happens when you have a new research and you bring that to a conclusion, to an end. Every new scientific approach brings you to new analysis and new synthesis. Now the last one is the new Verpon neologism binomial. So the construct, the reality or the fact is leading edge relative truth. If it is relative, if it is something new, there are no words to mean that. You have to create new words. And it's just like those rookies who come here and say, but you have just too many new words. But see, we're science, many new concepts. Spiritism doesn't have many new words because it comes from the 19th century and they don't do any kind of research, but we do here. Just Wagner, he's using this expression. So this is what we've been creating. That's why there is this international society that we call ICNEO, the International Council for Neologistics.
Página 11, na neosinapsiologia.
Page 11, neosynapsology, you say that the new synapses increase the new content of self-consciousliality. Couldn't we say the opposite? What you're saying is the first part. I'm talking about the other part. After that, you are complaining about the first manifestation. I'm talking about the second, the third one. But Waldo, would it be a cycle, like creating the new synapses and on and on? Yeah, you're talking about the first time you found out the synapses. I'm talking about the third 1,000 others. What matters here is the day after. I don't want to be in the kindergarten forever. Is there logic? Is it irresistible for you? Is this idea irresistible? So you see, very normal, very common words. They are very subtle. Yeah, because new synapses is usually created with new content. Roberto, did you understand what I said? Do you think I lack charity with Lush?
Waldo.
Am I being uncharitable? Yeah, this is a technique, how to stimulate students. He has another expression that we use here. How do you call it? Syndrome of anxiety generation. Yeah. But as Malu is near you, you should speak French, okay? The name is not this. The noun is when you are in a concept. There's a technical way to say it. Suspense. Isn't it right? Yeah, it's a matter of suspense. But the point of view of didactics, it's not suspense, it's the impact therapy. That's what I call impact therapy. They also call the conflict of cognition, it's a cognition tense environment. We're talking about content here, so nobody will miss the understanding. Because if you start with the content and you finish with the content, nobody is, everybody is able to understand this. That's what Antonio did yesterday. He did a suspense. So everybody paid attention when he started playing the guitar. I have seen all these techniques in Hollywood, and we know how to deal with it. But Waldo, why we are just handling and we don't have a name for the content? We feel like blind regarding it. Yeah, but impact therapy is very good in this case, because you don't treat the person with medicines. You take the person right to the surgery room and you tell her or him, the problem is this one. And in the surgery, there is a depth in the analysis, and you cut the problems. The cut half of the way, like a shortcut. That's a fact. Waldo, here, letter B. In this case, you told Loshi one thing leads to another, but you said that new synapses is the first one, because new content, why did you put this here? Can't we say that new synapses in new content is the same? Well, I don't want to repeat and to say the obvious. The vulgar issue, the obvious, evident. Our way is to give a jab for the person who thinks is receiving it, because the person that receives it is the one that needs. Yeah, Waldo, what you said here is correct, but I would like you to explain about the new synapses. A serious thing here is the verb add, to add. In this case, adding. Those new synapses are gone. They are retro synapses. We want very, very, very new synapses. The brand new synapses, that's what I could say. Yeah, what adds the self-conscienciality is the new content. That's why it comes later, right? Yeah. And this is what matters in this entry. And I talk about the self-conscienciality. It's the base of all the cognitionology. Another thing, the first trinomial is what I would like you to explain. The parabrain, continent, parabrain, brain. So let's understand the following. What does it mean? The continent is something that is in the place, right? The parabrain is limited, but why is consciousness not limited also? Let's see, let's understand. Let's use the didactics, okay? Check here. I have a bottle. This bottle of water is the continent. The water, what's moving here inside, is the content. We should understand this. Continent and content. It's clear. I could finally use my water as a resource for didactics. I used the bottle. I didn't even need to talk about the brand of this water bottle. The brand. So, what do you think about this? The continent is what's inside, right? There is also contingence. But it's something else, something different. I think I didn't understand why people got scared here. The consciousness is what I'm talking about. The consciousness is the content inside your brain, in your head, and in your parabrain. Consciousness is the content. And what's closer to your reality is the parabrain. So parabrain, to a certain point, could be the noun, the substance of your ego. And when we say you are your own belly button, we are saying that you are an animal. Your belly button is something that comes here in the bottom. It's related to maternity, to an animal reality. And we are not lying. We are showing reality. But when we say big ego, is better than saying big belly button. But we are still in the same spot. On the other hand, if we say that you are a big mind, a big brain, everything changes. There is even this appliance, the mega brain. Professor, here, is parabrain mental soma? The parabrain would be what we could call the decisive detail of the mental soma. What do you think? Isn't it? The decisive detail of the mental soma. Is it clear? No. You know what's the decisive detail? I say that oxygen is the decisive detail. So do the same regarding your mental soma. There is only one reality that is the decisive detail. Your parabrain, yourself, your consciousness. Why do you have mental soma with no consciousness? This is the amnesia. That's what happens with those children who are born with no brain. You said that people don't know how to study. I would like to know the methods to be used in the study. When I went to med school, the first thing I noticed was that those disciplines were too shallow, and I wanted to talk to the director. I was able to talk to him freely because I was from the administration board, and I had been to dental school. But why does the Ministry of Education chooses these disciplines in the first year of med school? He told me that he had asked the same question many years before. And he told me that was because people don't know how to study. And people should learn to study, to have homework, to make research. Otherwise, they wouldn't understand anything. So first year med school is for you to learn how to study. If they knew that already, they could even cut a year. So let's see why I say people don't know how to study. The primary course, the high school, is useless. Many people don't know even how to read. And the worst is that students check the content only right before the exam day. It affects our life here, our work. I give the entries to some people, and they take weeks to give me back. 3 pages. It's lack of study. Writing, the matter of writing and make some texts. Of course, when you are used to it, you don't spend 3 weeks because of 3 pages. You don't spend so much time to make a review. I can't stand it. I'm gonna talk about this until we find out why it's happening. We should give some classes to deal with the mental soma of our volunteers, and Katia Caporali could help us. Our friend is talking about this stuff, but it's very difficult. She's been trying. Julieta, she's been trying. Valana has also tried to talk about this. It would be very good. Okay, for you to improve your studies, if you don't have a teacher, find a way to buy a laptop and take note of all your readings, everything that calls your attention. This way you're going to ratiocinate, you're going to interpret and write more. People are also writing more, and they are learning how to write. Worse than all of this that I'm telling you is the following. When we built Holoteca, and I created the Holocycle department to start working with the encyclopedia here in CEAEC 10 years ago, the first thing was the illiteracy regarding the person itself, the self-illiteracy. So the case was, people arrived here, and when they took note of the data, they couldn't read it furthermore. I have seen this with doctors, for the patients not to see the name of the medicine. And the files that Ivone and all the volunteers do here, It's a matter of writing. With those letters they write, it's impossible to make research. And they used to say, "Oh, Waldo, but today, nowadays we have computers." No, but letter is very important. The manuscript is important. It's a matter of writing, handwriting. Do you understand your letter after a year having written your notes? Other question. In new consciential new content, energetic new content of the table. Wait, let me check the table. Consciential new content and energetic new content. You always say there are two realities in the universe, consciousness and energy. Why do you classify these two contents as essential and secondary?
Porque aqui está o contraponto com a consciência.
Because here we have the counterpoint with consciousness. Consciousnesses come first. I will read the question again, okay? You always say there are two realities in the universe, consciousness and energy. Consciousness comes first. Why do you classify in this entry the energetic content as secondary? Because one of the realities of the cosmos is secondary. The consciousness has the intelligence, is the one that determines the facts. Could you elaborate on that for me to understand more? I think now you understood. You yourself wrote this question, okay? You always say that there are two realities in the universe, consciousness and energy. Pay attention to what you wrote. I put consciousness before. Energy doesn't have self-intelligence. The consciousness does. The energy is nothing else but an instrument, a tool for us to manifest. Waldo, energosomatics is a subdiscipline of Conscienciology. Yeah. I had this projection when I was 18. 16 years later, I got interested in this subject again, and I've been trying to install the vibrational state. During a dream, I had some ideas approached in Tertúlia, especially, and I had the feeling my body was still. And I saw this geometric image in front of me, and I realized that when I focused and concentrated, I was staring at my door. Could you talk about this description? You were starting to write about the hypnopompic clairvoyance. Let's read again. I had this coincidence, and I felt the hypnopompic process. I amplified my lucidity, and I realized there was this geometrical image in front of me, and I realized I was staring the door of my room. When the image fades away, you had a semi-apparition, a semi-vision. It's very clear here. It's great when someone doesn't know anything about a subject starts writing about it. You're very good on writing this. You'd better get a laptop as soon as possible and start writing, because you are very clever. Question. I would like to know how many hours a day you sleep. I sleep from 5 to 7 hours a day. The scientists used to indicate 8 hours. Nowadays, there are some magazines saying that 7 hours are enough. But I rarely sleep 7 hours. I've been sleeping 5 hours a day for years. Sometimes I just lie down to work with my stuff, with energy. Do you sleep in several moments a day? Yeah, he'd better check that entry, intellectual turn. And there's also a DVD, right? Intellectual turn. Check it out. Or intellectual shift. I have some difficulty to wake up during the night to study. And I need to increase my studies. So I should ask you two things. Do you sleep earlier? You should sleep earlier. Second, do you exercise? You should exercise. But you can ask me, how come? If I exercise, I will sleep more. No, you have to regulate your metabolism due to your sleep hours. To sleep little is bad. To sleep too much is also bad. So you should balance the sleep hours with your healthy. If you sleep more than you need, sometimes you feel dumb. There are people that come to talk to me and I ask them, have you slept over 8 hours tonight? So these are those people that wake up, that stand up at 7 p.m. and only wake up at 10, 11 p.m. They are out of bed, but they are sleepy. I have a very beloved friend, and he's working in this prison with kids. Actually, it's an institution for kids. He's gonna be art teacher. I am Penta practitioner for 5 months. How can I help him? He's going to be exposed to all kinds of energies. And he doesn't like when I talk about mental soma. Okay, tell him that he's not going to deal with mental stuff. He's going to deal with energy. Teach him how to move the energies with the vibrational state. But don't tell him that he will talk about mental stuff, because artists sometimes feel scratch when we talk about intelligence. You talked about something bad in the head, and it makes me think when we talk in the cell phone, the mobile. Nowadays, I use the mobile a meter away from me, and I have a headset. Is it good? Yeah, there are some amplifiers and there are some appliances. Could you explain that for us? Some mobiles have expanded microphones and headsets for you to use it and not keep the mobile close to your head. The best is for the mobile not to be close to your ear, to your head, because it has microwaves. Though nowadays microwaves are shorter and it's much better. But even though it affects and there is immediate effects, children should not use mobiles. Okay? Because child have the brain under development.
Professor Waldo. Aqui, o lado direito.
Professor Waldo here, I would like to understand better if we can say that in the extraphysical dimension, when we are without the physical body, we have more access to original ideas, or not necessarily. No, not necessarily. You have more content when you are more aware. It doesn't mean anything if you just get out of your body.
Eu diria assim, vamos delimitar. No nosso...
The main thing is not that one. We don't have to look at it this way. There is a person, for example, who grasps more when is more aware, when has more self-conscienciality. It doesn't matter if the person is an extra-physical or intra-physical consciousness. What matters is the innermost predisposition to such awareness. But don't you think that if you have such predisposition, don't you think it would be better? Well, for me it doesn't work, because a person could be very intelligent but materialistic, never gets out of the body. It's like a log. It's like concrete. How do we call a person like this? It's the intraphysical, the blocked intraphysical consciousness. Trancada in Portuguese, locked consciousness. Or the thick layered consciousness, the consciousness who doesn't feel any kind of energy, so it's the thick layered. For example, Professor, in this current evolutionary stage we are at, as ex-students of the intermissive course, the tendency, you haven't use this word. The tendency is, of course, we can even give a round of applause. The tendency is to have such behavior, but I won't bet on it. We have to see each case by itself. But, for example, the new ideas we have here in action, are they coming from our previous experiences in the extra-physical dimension or not? Well, yes, you may have new ideas that you hadn't thought of before, ever. Everything's possible. We already have 6,000 neologisms. Why do you want more? Yeah, Professor, because of this intermissive course, we have this brainstorming of ideas. Yes, it means predisposition, which means nothing, in fact. So it means then that nothing matters if it's mere words. I go straight to facts, to factual life. The concrete matter. And then you're going to say, but it's an extra-physical process. And then I will say, the para-concrete matter, that's what matters. It's hard, I know. But that's the way it is. We can't just wander off. Professor, I don't want to avoid this subject, but I just want to know where such ideas come from. I would like to understand this context. Okay, but see, our talk here, what really matters here is lucidology, the science of lucidity. The fact of recovering your units of lucidity or cons, it would be the top condition. Okay, recovering cons, Professor, it means that we have such cons. Yes, but you know, for a very short season, and very badly, and maybe you had that, but you didn't give the value it merited. But then you come here and you see, well, it's a big issue. But then what really matters, Professor, is lucidity then. Yes, lucidity, lucidity, lucidity. It's all about it. The desirable would be to have everybody enlightened by wisdom and cognition. That would be the ideal, the planet of the Serenissimuses. We're going towards that direction, and I count on your effort of renovation. But Luis, what were you going to say? Parafactology, Waldo, last line. The pure new content in consciences. The consciences, which is the specific language of the free consciousness. It goes straight from para-brain to para-brain and reaches a level which we are not still able to understand, and it brings down all processes of symbols, of expression, and then we're going to be coping with the pure ideas. But everything shows that to capture this pure idea, it really implies that you've had several lives, several experiences to have this basic unitary, synthetic cognition of such reality. So the issue here, to understand well, consciences is just like throwing away forms to communicate with contents only. And for us, it's a big issue. We have some difficulties in dealing with it. Not only some difficulties, but all the difficulties, because consciences, the language of the free consciousness, is very difficult. And when we come to that situation, semiotics, all the other languages are brought down, and we're going to be dealing with contents. But what we have to bear in mind here is the forms. From the viewpoint of forms, there is a remark, an approach that's very logical. When we evolve, when we see there the evolutionary scale of the consciousnesses, you go up, 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 and when you reach the free consciousness, which has no psychosoma, this consciousness is free of all matters, all energies. All the energies it has comes from the cognition, intelligence, content, idea. It's the para-brain working on. So the form of the para-brain was discarded. That's what I call consciences. That's the pure language of the evolved consciousness. But in projections of the consciousness, Professor, in the last chapter, you had an experience with a free consciousness. In the chapter 60, you write that you had this, you got in touch with this free consciousness. And was it telepathy or consciences, Professor, that kind of communication? It was consciences. I tried to expose, to make it clear, but it's something very rudimentary, primary. I know that it exists, but I don't know how to explain. But it was not telepathy, right, Professor? It was consciences. Yes, it was. And I had some experiences with that. It's difficult to explain. There are some things that you don't explain. You eat the pumpkin, but if you didn't study gastroenterology, you don't know what happened to you, why you felt sick, and so on. So it's the same thing. Professor, one of the main things I have doubts here, for example, in the extraphysical dimension, you think you act, but how do helpers block you so that you just think of the main content? See, if you feel the energy, there's one of them here, they're very interested in the topic. Since we started talking about that, that's why I touched this issue, this subject, before getting started with the Tertúlia. Feel the energy, they are very interested. He brought in my view, around 15 students of the intermissive course, and they're here. They are listening to all of we're talking about here, and they liked a lot this subject, Neocontent. Because Neocontent, in fact, is what they deal with in the intermissive course. It's the applicability. But it's a man, I don't know who he is, but I know he's a friend of enumerators, and enumerator really gave him the way to step in, and he's in a very high level concerning energies. So that's what the focus is all about, yes. And he's likely to be a professor in the intermissive course, so he came here to aid us. But now you see that several of the ideas on logics, even this example with pumpkin, it was his idea. He brings the thing to a very basic level, so everybody understands that. And it's great, I just loved it.
Muito sério. Tá certo? O que é mais?
Letra A. No que a autossubmissão voluntária ao fluxo do cosmos. Se a gente está nessa autossubmissão,
if we are in this self-submission, Professor, we have
é permanente, como se fosse
a permanent source of new context. Yes, it's all the time. It depends on you. The intersubstantiality allows you to deal with the source, and it's ceaseless. And then you will start understanding what the extraphysical clinic is. Think of the extraphysical clinic from this point of view. The OFX is one of the things that demands more. You have to relinquish the things of your life in order to perform your duties in an extraphysical clinic. Last night I was there, and I've been there for 4 years, and I thought, how could I bring my extraphysical clinic into this environment? And I thought, well, there's no environment at all for that. It's opposite. But you have to relinquish in order to reach your OFX. But the better is, you cannot relinquish the last night's basis, which is sociability. You cannot. Sociability is basic for that. If you do not have contact here, how can you have in other dimensions? If you downplay here your garden, how can you receive the big personalities in your living room? So that's what I was thinking about last night when I was eating Luis risotto. And it's very interesting to think of. Now, I would like to understand a little bit better about the personal code of cosmoethics. Can we say that an extraphysical consciousness that steals money from the other people, can we say that this consciousness has its own code of cosmoethics? No, not at all. We say that this one has the code of anti-cosmoethics. But now it continues. They don't understand what's wrong. No. What matters is that this consciousness is ignorant of what goes on. Is there an unified code of cosmoethics to reach this unified universal code of cosmoethics? Yes, it's called evolutionary intelligence. There's no doubt about it. That's what we call EE or EI, evolutionary intelligence. Now, now, can you elaborate a little bit, Professor, on this source of content? that never finishes. How can we access that? Yeah, so this is what the person has to reach to understand. Who has more content of consciousness when we deal with the evolutionary scale of consciousnesses? Is the free consciousness, and we don't understand it very well, but I can already see a bit of content in Rosa Maria, in Amalo's works, in João's writings, in Roberto's. We have an idea about that because of our coexistence and so on. Last night, for example, I found out one more strong trait of a great musical revelation. Antonio was the big revelation last night, and we learn more and more every day. Allow me two basic considerations. One is naive and the other is a very bold ignorance. The pages that you bring in your printed entry is different from the digital virtual entry in the made available in the website. Of course it's different, because all the entries, I say, there are 5 pages. You just have to see what page it is and then you just look for it. It's like that and it will be like that. But he says here that they differ. The numeration in the written one we bring here, and the numeration of the digital entry. We have to take into account that every day an entry is inserted, and it's inserted in an alphabetical order, so it's different. And in the website, the numeration is different too. What makes it difficult is the crescendo of complexity in the analysis-synthesis process. A conscienciologist could have an innovative approach to something already existent. Yes, everything is possible. Concerning consciousness, I will not bet on anything. All consciousness is a Pandora box, or the cornucopia of happiness, full of brightness and glittering gold. So it depends on each consciousness. Are you the Pandora's box, or the cornucopia of the mega intelligence? Now, concerning the flow and the fact of receiving from a ceaseless source, conscienciogram and consciencial therapy, were they created in order to resume this plug, this link, in order to bring us out of the pitfall? Yes, everything of the conscienciology pedagogy deals with that, in order to avoid this lack of flow, this failure of communication. How do you connect this idea, Professor, with creativity? Creativity is exactly the fact of accessing what you know and what you don't. The real creativity is the person who has the red phone to talk to the extra-physical truth center. If you want to be creative, you have to phone the extra-physical center of truth. But in order to be illegible, for that you have to work on your energies, you have to assess the other 2 centers before. So there is a prerequisite for that. Professor, letter A, here, argumentology, number 5, mega-consciential gestation. You say that it's the personal overcoming of yourself. Could you develop on that? Could you elaborate on that? Okay, mega-consciential gestation, it's the masterpiece, the evolutionary overtaking of yourself. the self-overcoming of the author because of his opus magnum. For example, your life here. What you've done in terms of overtaking yourself. What have you done in terms of amplifying your consciential micro-universe? This is the way to mega-consciential gestation, which is your masterpiece in this case. What you're going to write in your masterpiece. It's something that should work as a self-relay for the next life. So what are you leaving to yourself for the next life? For example, I'm writing this encyclopedia of Conscienciology that has already 7,000 pages. That's what I am to leave, or what I am to live in this life. 78 years of studies in this life. That's what I'm going to leave to myself for the next life. And I have to explain all that here. Because what about writing, not 7,000 pages, but what about a 500-page book talking about all your experience? You start now accumulating facts. I started out when I was 14, writing down everything. I have more than 60 years of research to come to such conclusions. And you see, sometimes they wanna here, they wanna play with me. They want to put me into a corner here. They want to bring me into trouble with advanced ideas. And when I am not able to answer, I say, I'm sorry, but I am not competent. But when I am, but you see, most of what they ask is useless. So the essential, I am dealing with most of the facts. Because if you are studying the consciousness, you are studying everything. It's cosmos. It's the essence of everything. So the mega-consciential gestation is related to the self-relay. And it is so that we won't miss on the boat, right? Yes, because in your condition of mini-cog, you will be able to proceed, develop, grow, progress, evolve with yourself and your efforts, the things you're doing. We cannot just have this life and then in the next one you just forget about it. You cannot. You have to remember that and have this thread to bring your lives into an interwoven fabric so that you will be able to see, okay, my life is being useful, because otherwise you will be just that ordinary person in the interphysical society. The person says, I want to plant a tree, write a book and make a child. That person is just wasting time. And the person says, my book will be on poetry. And you see, poetry is something that's just imagination. The best to communicate is the technical text. And what about the descriptive text? No, it's just rubbish. You know how it is. The process is the content. It's the content-based work, or, believe it or not, is today's entry. It's the new content. That's what really matters. Is it that clear to you? In technology, page 10, I think that you should write the technique of 5 hours of reflection. What? The technique of the 5-hour reflection. Yeah, she's got a sore throat. I didn't hear well, but yeah. So, but it's in the referentiology already. But it was good tip. It's in the number 4. 5-hour self-reflection. You were saying that the creativity is the red phone to the exophysical center of truth. Yes, that's what I was talking about here, the decisive detail, to bring the subject to the discussion to an end.
It's not related to us, but at the same time it is. Yeah, it is irresistible, right? Can I say that precognition could also be an access to the extraphysical center of truth? No, come on, calm down. Precognition is when you know something is going to happen. It can be tomorrow, in a year, in 10 years. It can be a truth, can be reality, but it doesn't mean it is an access to the extraphysical center. One thing is not dependent to the other. But the access to these centers is when you have an advanced idea that changes your context. It deals with you in a deep and broad way. Extraphysical centers are not for kids. When it comes is to make renovation, some recycling, deep recycling. That's what happens. Waldo, a high percentage of irresistibility of the intermissivist regarding these new contents of Conscienciology is a fact, right? We listen to some ideas and we can't just escape. Yeah, there are also some questions here in the Tertúlia. Those people who started doing Penta, they changed their lives in 3 months, and they say this word, irresistible. It happened to me, Waldo. Yeah, but it happened to you due to intermissive course. The words irresistible and intermissivist are always together. Yeah, but it's just due to the fact that we have studied this content. Yeah, sometimes you have studied this in previous lives, but intermissive course renewed, updated your knowledge. It made it flourish. It changed. During this updating, you are closer to your evolutionary moment, and it's richer, you see, with the intermissive course. For example, if it were a new idea that we haven't approached intermissive course, no. The matter of creativity is this. You have a new idea, and you have another one, and you join together with the third one, and you have a chain of new ideas. After you have 5, 4, 6, you can find more new ideas. And sometimes it's not related to your intermissive course, it's all yours, by deduction, when you have a cosmoview. It's normal, it happens. In the best families, everybody goes through this. So the matter of creativity, as you're saying, is relative. Here we want to have essential creativity of evolution, or creativity that reaches the free consciousness. And the closer to the consciousness, the better. What one thinks, what one feels, what one aims, what's the goal, how to reach it, how to understand this, it's important. That's what I talk about cosmoview. It allows us to have an idea like the evolutionists, the Serenissimuses. We are going through this extrapolationism. Is it clear for you? That's the way. Professor, I think it's very interesting when you talk about this table in page 13. Yeah, 20 very serious items. Yeah, it makes people think and impacts people. We could say that every new content is hybrid, right? It's hard to say, hard to tell. First of all, what is not hybrid? From philosophy, there are people that think that everything is hybrid. So calm down when you talk about hybridism. I want to call your attention to the essential and the secondary contents, okay? For example, number 9, exclusive new content and vulgar new content. You should understand this. Literal new content and symbolic new content. Even the literal thing is more important than the symbolic one. So we should leave this symbol stuff back. Should leave it behind. Realist new content and daydreaming new content. When you daydream, you are a fanatic. Every dogmatism accepted, it's all a matter of delirium, the surrealism, superstition. So our advertisement, please. Today's punctuations, 114 signatures in the book, 19 online questions, 52 on-site votes, and 15 online votes. We have some invitations from Alexandre to the lecture and also the trail walk. We have André Lima, we have Maria Luisa, and Alzira talking about guinea pig consciousness. We like to reinforce the invitation made here to close the Winter Festival. We would like to invite you for the poisonous animals lecture and to the walk afterwards. The team of discernmental is going to be in the site to sell the T-shirts and hats. This lecture is free, and it's very important for us that live here in Cognopolis due to the close relation with the forest. So we're gonna have some information on how to avoid accidents with the poisonous animals and what we should not have in our houses to avoid the presence of these kinds of insects and animals, and how to deal with it. In Foz do Iguaçu, it's very common for pets and even people that live nearby to have accidents with snakes, scorpions, and some spiders also. Once more, I would like to say that it's for free, and it's going to take place in Discernimento.
Bom, gente, nossa lembrança do debate dominical, que é daqui a pouco, às 15 horas também, will take place aqui no CEAEC.
Within 40 minutes at 3 p.m. here in CEAEC.
A gente vai ter o professor
We're going to have a double debate. Professor André Abes and Kátia Caporali will speak, will debate, will be the epicenter. André will talk about the conscienciometric positioning and Kátia Caporali on the consciential paradigm. Now André Abes will talk a little bit. Yes, how it leads you to the intraphysical recycling and to the modification in the evolutionary level. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of ASPR Association, I'm here to invite all those who research Serenology to present their works in the first International Congress on Serenology that will take place in Aracê campus from 23 to 26 June 2011, within a year, but to get there we have to call the papers that will be selected till August this year. So those who are interested, get in touch with Aracê through the
Congresso Internacional de Serenologia, cis@aracê.org. Obrigada.
Boa tarde. Nosso convite hoje são para todas aquelas pessoas que gostariam de passar por uma experiência inédita.
For those who would like to go through an great experience, we would like to invite for the Conscienciologram guinea pig. It's very good to receive feedbacks, and you do it by analyzing a sheet of the Conscienciologram, exposing your grades and explaining your assessment and your content in that moment. For those who have not gone through this course, to this experience, that we have places, and the subscription can be made in CEAEC's reception. The course will take place next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Thank you.
Frugalidade complexa.
Complex frugality is the next entry. The subdiscipline is holomaturity.
Obrigado a todos e uma boa tarde.
Thank you very much.